Plaintiff Ruth Gordiola was married to the defendant's son, and she claims he wasn't invited to their wedding because he's an aggressive drunk who made inappropriate advances towards her. Ruth is suing her father-in-law for unpaid loans. Defendant Antonio Gordiola insists he was invited to his son's wedding, and he denies ever acting inappropriately towards Ruth.
Start with you.
My backstory is, with my father-in-law is that him and I have always had a rocky relationship. And it all started from the day I met him in 2016. He's always had this aggressive demeanor on him, like he owns the world.
You were his son's
yes.
wife, correct?
And my late husband's.
Oh, sorry
yes.
to hear that. You lost your husband.
Thank you, sir.
So would he portray that behavior towards you?
Yes.
Tell me how.
So it all started off at my wedding. I did get married to his son on July 9th of 2016. And he wasn't invited to our wedding just because he's always had that attitude that he's just extremely aggressive and he's a mean drunk. So my wedding night, after we did while we were doing the father-in-law and daughter dance, he handed me $100 in my hand and then whispered in my ear, "I told you I was gonna come, like you don't get things your way," and then called me out of my name.
That's not true.
Called me the B word. And then proceeding at the end of the night, he was cooking. He invited us to have an after party at his house, which I knew from the get-go was a bad idea. But my husband—
Particularly if he had just called you a B. Go ahead.
He called me a B. And then at the end of the
I certainly
night—
wouldn't. I'd be wanting to jump on him, particularly if I'm your husband.
I just told him—
I certainly ain't going to no party at his house. Go ahead.
Yeah, I told
So
him—
if I did that, why they show up?
I did because my husband wanted to go.
Go ahead.
He was a daddy's boy. I'm not denying that.
I understand. I wouldn't have went though, that's all.
I didn't want to go.
If my wife had to go, you didn't go?
I didn't want to go, but my husband pleaded.
Okay, go right ahead.
Yeah. So then at the end of the night, he called me again out of my name, continued to use that word. And everyone, all of the guests that we had over his house, including
Your husband was saying nothing?
My husband was in the restroom.
You didn't tell him?
I did tell him.
Honey, he's calling me this over and over.
I did, but my husband had been drinking. We were drinking, so my husband was just like, "Oh, that's just how my dad is."
Okay.
So my family and friends that were there, they were like telling him respectfully, like, "Sir, you're not supposed to be calling her that." While we were doing the father-in-law and daughter dance, he whispered in my ear, "I told you I was gonna come, like you don't get things your way," and then called me out of my name.
That's not true.
Called me the B word. And then he invited us to have an after party at his house, which I knew from the get-go was a bad idea. But my husband—
Particularly if he had just called you a B.
Plaintiff Ruth Gordiola says while married to the defendant's son, the defendant often got drunk and made inappropriate advances towards her.
All right, so that was the nature of you all's relationship. Anything else you want me to know?
He's always made inappropriate advances towards me when he's drunk.
When did he say
That
these
was when I
things?
moved in with him in 2018.
Okay.
He would
And
invite—
your husband was there?
My husband was downstairs watching
Did
a
you share
Raiders
those
game.
things with him, how he constantly hit on you?
I would tell him that, Your Honor,
And
but
he did nothing?
my husband
not
was
true.
a daddy's boy.
Okay, I understand. All right.
He invaded our privacy,
Let me hear from
especially—
you, sir. Give me some background.
The only thing I said to her on her wedding day, and yes, I was invited, or the only thing I said on her wedding day is you took me calling you a wrong. So I didn't mean a as a. We were having a conversation. I had called her, okay? And I'm just telling you because that's the word that was
She
used.
used the B word, as she did.
Okay.
She was respectful enough to use the B word.
So anyway, you know, they came to the, you know, because I ended up throwing the after party because they didn't have one. All right.
We didn't want one.
So they came to the house. Nobody made my son or her come to the house. And after she caused the scene, Tony said, "You
What
don't."
scene did she call?
What was the scene I called?
She brought up everything
I
that
didn't.
we had done.
Where? Were you all in the
you know,
house?
we were
What's the
beefing over.
scenario?
It was out in the street. In fact, I walked up the
What
street.
provoked her to begin saying that?
I think because she was drunk.
Okay. And this was a wedding night? Is it?
Yes.
All right. At the wedding night after party, she came and she was in the middle of the street drunk, making allegations about you, saying what, though?
Something to do with hitting. One of them was hitting on her sister, which I didn't do, and I tried to explain
else?
that to her. The other one was calling her the B word
What
out
else?
of her name. And I don't remember what
made
else.
me lie
How
to
did
my
you
husband.
respond?
So I'm sitting there saying, look, you got it wrong. And I'm tired of telling you that you got it wrong. I said, I don't deserve this. And my son is right there. And we're walking up the street. So the other people.
What does your son say?
What did my son say?
Yes.
My son said, Dad, you don't have to say sorry to her anymore for the way she acted and what she did.
Why would you say that about a dead
Oh,
man that
mind
can't
you,
defend
Your,
himself?
your son and
Mind
her
you-
husband is deceased, so we can't reach back and determine
Right.
what he
But
said.
mind you,
unless-
if I was so disrespectful and using these B words
Well,
or
you were
any
here.
of these
you did him here. You did him in here. You were disrespectful to my court. And I don't know what court you've been in to think you can come in here and use that terminology. You're not in a ghetto.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but I
you
want
act
you to
like
know
it.
exactly
You act
what
like
that
it
B
come in
word
my
is.
courtroom
This is how I
cursing
feel
like
differently,
that.
Your Honor.
Let me hear from you on what he owes you, the loans, ma'am.
So he asked for $600, but we ended up giving him $300 just because I know he is
Because he
reckless.
was broke. What else?
And he spent it recklessly. He came to Chicago, and I heard
When
from
was he
his
to
children.
repay you?
I'm sorry?
When was he supposed to repay
He
the
said
money?
until before he dies.
All right. He said he's going to pay you before he dies?
Correct.
And you said okay?
I told him it was fine because he was family.
So why are you here today, ma'am? If you told him he could pay you anytime before
Your
he
Honor,
dies.
because he was family.
All right. I'm going to have to dismiss your claim. Have a good day.
I'm disappointed that he continues to go to court and continues to speak out of my husband's words. My husband hated his father.
That ain't true. I don't have time to deal with this disillusionment.